In this video, I want to give you guys some insight on how I got into the Nightmare on Elm Street. I already made videos talking about how I got into the Chucky franchise, and I also made a video recently talking about how I got into the Halloween franchise. So I thought it was only right if I made a video talking about how I got into the Nightmare on Elm Street. And I believe I got into Nightmare on Elm Street around the same time that I got into Halloween. Like I mentioned in that video, that was around my high school years, and that was around the time where I was like binging a whole bunch of horror series that I'd never seen before. Series like Sleepaway Camp, series like Halloween, like I mentioned, Texas Chainsaw, the rest of the Friday the 13th movies that I didn't see, and also other slasher movies that came from the 80s. But I knew I definitely wanted to check out A Nightmare on Elm Street, mainly because my mom happened to be a really big fan of that series, because growing up, I was more of a Jason fan. Like I always loved Jason. Jason was just the one that I was more invested in. Like nothing against Freddy, but I was just more of a Jason guy. I just thought the aesthetic of him looked really cool. But I still thought Freddy was cool as well. So hopefully Freddy does not haunt me in my nightmares for just speaking on, yeah, I like Jason a little bit more, which I'll say it again, Freddy, I do like Jason a little bit more than you, but that's not taking anything away from what you've done. Because when it comes to Nightmare on Elm Street, it was one of those popular franchises that came out of the 1980s. Because you had a lot of the slasher movies come out of the 1980s that are very popular. Series like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. You got Chucky a little bit later on. You also had Texas Chainsaw going on and other slasher movies like Pinhead. When it came to the Hellraiser franchise, there was just a lot of movies around that time that were really popping, and a lot of the kids really enjoyed watching in the movie theaters after high school, whenever they wanted to get a group of friends together to watch these films. And after watching the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie, I never knew this was the first movie that Johnny Depp was in. Like that actually caught me off guard. I saw one of my friends mention like, oh, hey, is that Johnny Depp? Like, no, you're kidding. And then I go back, it's like, yep, that's Johnny Depp. Like I did not recognize it, probably because I didn't see a lot of Johnny Depp films around that time, because I got into a lot of these like well-known series that a lot of people know about later on in my life. But when I found that out, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But talking about like the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie, just giving you guys like my overall thoughts on like that movie as a whole, I enjoyed it. I thought it was probably one of those movies where if you want to get into slasher movies, this would definitely be one of the movies that I recommend to you, because if you look at the original Nightmare on Elm Street, I do consider that a classic horror movie, because you pretty much have this guy known as Freddy Krueger going around in your dreams, haunting you, and then eventually killing you, like you guys saw with one of the most iconic kills in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, where you have him dragging up that girl and he's just tearing her apart in her dream, and then you just see her like dead in real life once one of the other people in the room notice her current condition. That's just how terrifying Freddy was, because it's not like Jason, who can hunt you down in the woods, find you and kill you, or like one of the many Ghostface killers that could track you down and kill you as well, or Michael Myers. Like when it came to Freddy, it was actually unique. Like it was actually a very unique concept where in order for Freddy Krueger to reach you, he would have to reach you in your dreams, and then he would end up taking advantage of you, doing whatever he wanted. And then, as you guys clearly saw with the numerous kills in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, he eventually got the job done. And I always remember looking back, like when I watched the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie for the first time, whenever I went to bed after watching that film, I was like, holy shit, is this gonna happen to me? Like, am I gonna fall asleep? Is Freddy Krueger gonna come across me in my dreams? Is he gonna pull me into the dream world and do whatever he wants? I don't know why I had that thought process, but that's just how it was. Like as a kid, you know, growing up, you just thought of the most bizarre shit. And I thought that was going to be one of the things that was going to happen to me, but obviously it didn't, because it is a fictional movie. It's meant for entertainment purposes. But it was very entertaining overall to watch the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And the first one, like I said, is a classic. It's probably my favorite film out of them all. And I also thought it was very interesting, like how they ended up coming across Freddy, like later on in the movies, where you had them trying to like brainstorm and think how they're going to bring Freddy into the real world, like you saw Nancy do in the first movie, where she was setting up all these different kinds of traps in her room. Because the way that she did it is that, let's say for example, you know, Freddy took advantage of her and she was like walking around the house, she would end up activating one of those traps and she would grab Freddy along with her. So as she woke up, Freddy would be there as well, so then she could eventually come across Freddy and take him down for good. But obviously when it comes to a lot of these slasher movies, can't keep a good guy down. So I always loved that entire concept. And when it came to the later movies of like the Nightmare on Elm Street, like yes, I thought they were cool, they're very interesting, especially when it came like the Dream Warriors, with like the unique concept that they explored with like each of these movies. Overall, I was a big fan of the original movie. That's what I really liked. I also loved like Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I thought that was really cool because you actually saw Robert Englund like not play Freddy in that movie. It was actually like all of the actors that played in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Then they actually come across like an actual Freddy in that movie, which I thought was like pretty cool to have like a movie that's like a little bit different from like the other movies that we saw, and I thought it was cool. I didn't think it was like out of this world, but I thought it was a very unique concept that they decided to explore in that film. And one of the things I am not a fan of when it comes to the Nightmare on Elm Street is probably the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, because to me it didn't feel like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I didn't like the look of Freddy. I thought Freddy looked very weird in that movie, and the way that they constructed Freddy's character in that movie seemed a little off. Like, I realized Freddy was like a very weird individual in the original films when it came to Nightmare on Elm Street, but the way that they displayed him in the remake was something that I didn't really care for that much, like the way that they portrayed his character, because it just didn't feel like the Freddy Krueger that I remember watching. And that's why I have a lot of problems with these remakes, because yes, I understand they're trying to do something a little bit different. Sometimes when it comes to remakes, if you want to touch like a classic franchise, I understand it's like a money bargain at the end of the day, but sometimes don't fix something that's not broken. And I'm honestly happy ever since then they didn't make another remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, because I just did not like that film. It was just so bad. I'm sorry. It was just a very bad film. I even brought that up in my Halloween video talking about how bad of a movie that was. I also eventually want to come across like one of those Freddy gloves one of these days, because I remember seeing them at like Spirit Halloween all the time, but I never grabbed them. So maybe this year I'll try to grab one. But I've always wanted to own like a Freddy Krueger glove, because I always thought the aesthetic looked so cool. Like, I own a hockey mask of Jason. I actually have a replica of the Friday the 13th Part 3 mask. It's still in the box. I don't touch it because I want it to remain in mint condition. So it'd be nice if I bought something like that so I can keep it in mint condition, not open it up, and I can have it as like something I could display in my room as memorabilia for me to look at, saying, oh yeah, you know, this is a cool antique that I found, Freddy Krueger's glove. So I'm just going to put it in this one spot so it could be like a nice little antique in my room. That's something I definitely do want to get down the line. But other than that, that's my overall thoughts on Nightmare on Elm Street. That's the story, how I got into the franchise, and that's my overall thoughts on the series as a whole. So if you guys have anything you want to say about Nightmare on Elm Street, do you guys have your own personal stories that you want to share with me with the whole story of how you guys got into Nightmare on Elm Street, be sure to let me know your story down below, or any other thoughts that you have down below in the comment section. And if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And also, if you guys want to check out your boy on social media, be sure to check out my Twitter, my Instagram, and my TikTok. It is located in the description below. Make sure to click on the bell for notifications so you guys are notified whenever I upload a new video on the channel. But other than that, I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, wherever the day may be, if it's a daytime, the nighttime, or the evening. And I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.